Is it started?
Arjun, just let us know whenever you started. Okay.
Okay, great.
Working directly with the CEOs, staying in 5-star hotel, flying in business class, best growth opportunities. Yes, there's a profession that offers it all. Greetings, everyone. This afternoon, our purpose of gathering here is to provide you insights into the field of consulting and how to get into it as a potential career path. We'll be delving into the opportunities it presents, and we'll also discuss the different pathways through which you can enter into consulting. So before we commence, let us kick things off with the brief introduction of each of us. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll go first. So hey guys, Lakshya Jain here, a recent grad from PIEDS Goa. My professional career path has been given in the slide, so I feel that's pretty much it. More or less, I come from a Baniya, typical Marwadi family based out of Bombay, not exactly Thane, not Bombay to be honest. And yes, I explored things here and there, and which led me to this interesting field of consulting. And that's more or less it, which got me interested towards it.
Thank you, Lakshya. So hi guys, I'm Aditya, a third-year student at Pilani. So I guess me and Lakshya have that Marwadi background as common. But he moved to Bombay, I moved to Delhi. So we don't share that. Okay, so I'll be interning at BCG next summers, and yeah, that more or less everything is written on the slides.
Yeah, so I think all three of us share the Marwadi DNA. I'm also a Marwadi, who actually happens to still stay in Bombay. And yeah, so I'll be interning at BCG over the next summer through like an on-campus program. And yeah, like I don't think so there's anything else left to introduce myself. Like I'm sure everyone will stalk our LinkedIn's after this anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Chalo.
So just to give a brief introduction to everyone who's like joined us today as to what this talk is gonna encompass and what it's typically not gonna encompass. Like so a lot of time, like anyone who's coming with talks think first and foremost, this is not gonna be an in-depth case solving workshop. That is something, yes, the PUCC does hold on planning later on perhaps this week. But as of right now, this is just simply a session on why consulting, how to break into consulting, and not the intricacies of case solving of how do you solve cases. Secondly, this is not a session to like tell people that why you should do an MBA, why you shouldn't do an MBA. And finally, this is not a consulting like going ahead and like civil services, product management, as it rightly says so. Definitely not the right people to ask. Like I think consulting has been like the first like thing like which everyone here is like has like dealt with. But yeah, the session will definitely be dealing with life of consulting, life in consulting, showing you like what are the perks that one gets to deal with over their entire consulting stint, talking with CXOs and the whole shebang. Opportunities that are available for various consulting organizations. How do you build a profile actually so that you get shortlisted in the first place itself? And how do you craft a resume from a particularly Bitsian's perspective? Since surprisingly, like a lot of people don't know this, but resumes are shortlisted by Bitsians as well for at least on-campus opportunities. And finally, just a quick overview of what case questions look like and what can interview questions encompass of.
Okay, so what this session will cover will mostly include an introduction to the industry, like what is consulting, and like you might have seen the meme circulating nowadays that why are consultants even required? So yeah, we people are required. So we'll discuss that. And why should you consider it? What it does consulting has to offer? And even if you consider it, what opportunities do you have on the campus, say BITS Pilani, BITS Goa? And lastly, how do you prepare for it? How do you prepare for those opportunities? So without further ado, let's get into it and start. So yeah. So what exactly is consulting? So Lakshya, would you like to talk about that?
Great, yeah. So consulting is basically brains for hire. So how this entire industry works is, suppose if I am a CXO and mostly my entire viewpoint is currently stuck at the current operations or the day-to-day operations of the company, right? But I can't figure out the growth strategy or what's the way ahead for the company, or probably an HR problem or somewhat similar, right? Wherein I can't keep my focus on, right? So there's this consulting firm that comes to me, that approaches to me. They tell me that, okay, we have these best of the minds available with us of the country or of the world, and we would gladly be able to ask them to work for you for the variety of consulting fees or uh, whatever the negotiation was, right? So whatever the agreement was, right? So that's more or less it. So basically, as consultants, you work on various client problems and help them solve their business issues, particularly when they hire you.
Okay. So
Yeah.
one thing I would like to ask here, that many folks prefer consulting over other domains because they want a front end role where they can actually see the impact of their work, and like they prefer it over, because in tech, coding, or any other financial roles, this does not happen. So I just wanted to know, to what extent is this true? How much your work as an associate actually impacts?
So from day one onwards, you're directly working with the CXOs, right? So how consulting the entire, so if I am an associate and I am going there, I am staffed on a project, right? So from day one, I've been assigned a work stream of which I am responsible for entirely, and I have to deliver whatever the targets are, right? So here there are two main intricacies. One is the responsibility, that you have to deliver the targets as whatever the agreement is, right? So basically, consulting projects vary from 6-month projects to even 2 years, 5 years, and 10-year projects also, right? So obviously, 10-year projects, you can't deploy a team of probably 8 to 10 consultants for the entire 10 years, right? So how this works is in a very structured manner, wherein for the first year there would be certain targets, right? So in order to achieve those targets, there are various work streams that are being divided, right? So probably if I am joining as an associate, I am assigned a work stream to which I have to deliver the targets, right? So it might be 1 month target, 2 month targets, or 3 month targets also, right? And as I have to achieve those targets, I also have to explain as to how can we achieve those targets and what is the best way possible ahead, right? So right now, consulting is not only just stuck with strategy as per se, right? So what we have is, why do consultants are required, right? So people think that, okay, they just come here, give some gyan, and then just say fuck off, right? That's not the issue here, right? Here, the consulting as an industry has grown so much that right now we have to deliver things from 0 to 1. So right from strategy to even implementation, right? So that's what we are being paid off, right? So the major hand-in-hand problem is that if I am joining as an associate and I have a work stream, so I have to deliver my growth to the CXOs. So from day one, I'll have that front-end kick-ass job wherein I am directly in contact with the CXOs.
Yeah, seems nice. So this is one thing that actually fascinates people about consulting, that your work will actually matter. It's not like you'll be sitting behind a desk and just sitting and doing work, and you cannot actually see how, like, what are you contributing towards. Okay, so yeah, Rahul, you saying something?
So just one more thing I wanted to ask. So this is something which troubled me also when I was in my second year. That I understood that consulting like majorly goes into two branches. That is the management consulting and the other bucket that is present. And I understand that MBBs are somewhat in the management consulting buckets, and stuff like perhaps Gartner or JSW Steel consulting roles fall in the like core or tech consulting. So how do they particularly differ? Because I also know that these management consulting roles also sometimes work on digitization projects or decarbonization projects. So how do these exactly differ from each other in a consultant's working?
Okay, great. So first of all, JSW Steel is not a consulting company. It's a steel manufacturing company. But yes, Gartner is primarily into tech consulting, is what I know and what I have read about. And as much as I have talked about to various people around. But so there are various kinds of consulting, right? So probably management consulting is the more broader aspect, wherein you are reaching into each and every type of consulting. So when you're, so probably if there's JSW Steel as a client of XYZ consulting company, right? And they have asked this consulting company to for a decarbonization project, right? So they have deployed this consulting company for a decarbonization project from strategy to implementation, right? So they are overheading each and every process as to how can the company improve on their carbon scale and how can they reduce their overall carbon emission, right? And those would be dependent on targets, obviously, because obviously how would you judge any project, right? It's based on any parameters or any quantified numbers, right? So this is more or less it. When it comes to any specified consulting companies, for example, Dalberg, right? So Dalberg primarily works over non-profit organizations, with governments, with a lot of social enterprises, right? So their consulting role is more on the side of what we can call it as all in all pro bono consulting roles, wherein it's more of the impact consulting, wherein they are working towards policies, they are working towards betterment of a society, and a lot of things like that, right? So obviously they are also earning revenue, right? So Dalberg is not a non-for-profit organization. They are registered as a company, right? But they are primarily working towards NGOs and social enterprises and governments, right? So MBBs being the largest, then comes various boutique consulting roles, which have their own niches, right? So for example, Oliver Wyman. So Oliver Wyman has a major industry control over aeronautical consulting. So they have a very large base with a lot of aeronautical companies, right? So a lot of these companies have established their particular niches in which they excel on. So this is majorly it. Whereas in a broader bucket, you can call it as management consulting. And when it comes to various niches, therein where you define IT consulting, where you define impact consulting, which Dalberg does, aeronautical consulting, which Oliver Wyman does, and whatnot.
Well, so surprisingly, yeah, like that's the new insight even I've got. Like they actually have their own mini specializations that they've gone ahead and grown into. And other than that, like, yeah, as we can see right now, there's also a couple things like this is like how consulting firms quite often drive major change. Like the barcode is actually invented by McKinsey on a contract with a warehousing firm to go ahead and actually like make their warehousing operations a bit better. So this is the actual scale of impact that quite often consulting organizations have. Moving on. Anything else you all wanna expand over here, or shall we move on?
No, I mean, I guess like we have established now what exactly is consulting. Now let's talk about why even join consulting. What does consulting have to offer to us as an analyst? Okay. So yeah, I mean, what consulting has to offer is basically cross-industry exposure, and people call it a mini MBA just because you work with people with high stature in the companies, and you get exposure to senior management, and like best exit option. I guess Lakshya would be able to talk more about it, like what are the exact growth opportunities available once you join consulting, and what are the best exit options.
Yeah, so why do people join consulting is apart from the kick-ass money or the kick-ass life, which is the super glamorous life altogether. But apart from that, you also have a lot of other stuff, right? So probably, for example, for BCG, what I know of is that you can't be staffed on a particular project for more than 9 months as an associate, right? And the minimum could be around 3 to 4 months, right? So after every 5 to 6 months on an average, you are staffed on a different industry and a different client. Now you know the kind of width that you have, right, across various industries, right? So your every day is something new for you, right? Obviously, you have to deliver your targets, and once you're done with your work stream, probably if the partner wants you to continue with the same project, then that's more or less it. If the partner wants you to work on other different industries, then obviously you will get staffed on a very different industry, right? So there are various kinds of projects like government projects, projects with obviously various private organizations. These can be financial institutions, manufacturing companies, and even service industries, right? And apart from that, you have projects with social enterprises and NGOs, right? Apart from that, right from day one, as we discussed before, you have senior management exposure, right? And apart from that, the even when BCG came to our campus for recruitments, the first thing that they said about were the exit options. And how crazy is that? That if a company is coming for recruitment and they're talking about exit options, right? So the exit options include the best business schools. There are a variety of roles wherein you can get into, which could be general management, product management, business development, and also there's the private equity and VC, the kind of lavish job that everyone wants to exit to. They mainly hire through laterals, so they never hire through campuses, be it even IIMs. From IIMs, also top IIMs, they hire hardly one or two people, right? But from consulting or from the best consulting firms, they hire a lot of people around. So I know people who have exited to Swikoya, who have exited to Blackstone, who have exited to Bearings. So, and it's as an opportunity, it's great because obviously the industry exposure is wide, the senior management exposure is very direct, and as well as you have a lot of exit options once you have decided on a what kind of career trajectory that you want to go on.
Yeah. So, I mean, in addition to all these abundant career prospects, consulting is also known for its opulent way of life. Could you provide a brief overview of this aspect?
So a typical consulting life would include waking up on a Monday at 4 a.m., catching up the 6 a.m. flight, reaching the client city at 8 a.m., reaching the client's office by 9, working your ass off for the next 12 to 14 hours. You're staying at the best hotels in the city, no doubt about it. Your travel expenses are all taken care of by your Amex card, travel, food, everything. And by Friday night, you are dead tired and you're returning back to your own city. That's the overall gist of a consulting life, which is lavish enough and which is tiring enough too. Apart from that, you have a lot of parties, Friday night parties, weekday parties to some extent, client dinners and whatnot.
So, would you call all these things golden handcuffs?
Yeah, definitely golden handcuffs. And apart from that, having good money too.
Yeah. Okay.
I just hope that summer interns also get the same experience.
I'm sure they'll treat you even better than us because they want you to take the PPOs, right? So obviously they'll treat you better than
I am not looking forward to waking up at 4 a.m. every day.
Man, so just to give a brief here, I haven't joined the firm yet. But I have a lot of friends in the industry because I'll be joining the firm in the next 2 months. So from what I have heard about is they are lacking so much sleep. They are just dreading oversleep because it's also over the weekend. So the work hours are tough, no doubt about it. But it comes with a disadvantage, right? So every advantage has their disadvantage, right? So it's a part and parcel of life, right? So obviously, if you're getting something this kick-ass, wherein you have industry exposure, you're never getting bored of your life. Never. So what generally happens is that normally people get bored within the next 6 months or 1 year of their job, but you never get bored of this job for sure. And you're directly talking with the best C. For example, if I'm working with Reliance, obviously I'll be talking to CXOs or at least CXOs -1. And the exit options are also far better than any role that can offer. So that's a part and parcel, which I feel everyone has to give up.
Yeah, I mean, it's the time to hustle. So yeah.
And just for the viewers, like one very interesting story, like expanding more on Lakshya's point of like interacting with like Reliance's CXOs or CXOs -1. So the person I was case practicing with, like she is currently an associate, had a very interesting story to tell me that like once she was flown to Delhi middle of the week and entered a meeting in the parliamentary building. And there is sitting the PMO, the energy minister, and the top 20 energy company CEOs in one room with her and her boss, waiting to hear them out as to what recommendations her and her boss have for those people. So that is genuinely something, although yes, that might not be as common as like it might come across as in her story, but yes, that is definitely something which consultants do, and even down to the associate level, it is possible to get that kind of exposure.
Let me guess, was that Smriti?
Yeah, that was Smriti. It was a decarbonization project. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, expanding more upon what does a consulting life give you? So, a question I want to ask you, Lakshya, here is, like again on the previous question as well. Like one thing in the current memes or the various media attacks we get on management consulting, I read one today in Ken actually. Consulting does not provide you with any skills per se. Like unlike a programming job, it does not necessarily require you to have a hard skill. All it's required you is to go ahead and do research and give. At least this is what the media portrays it out to be. But do you think, despite all this, you're able to get like upgrade your business experience and your business acumen that you're able to exit into these top tier management roles?
So, okay, let's look at this very logically, right? So, if as consultants we are exiting into the best management role, so obviously we would have gained that skill set that the company wants us to deploy for them on a very long term basis. For example, Sundar Pichai, right? So he's an I'm sorry. Sundar Pichai is a McKinsey analyst, right? Before joining Google, he was straight out of Stanford. He went into McKinsey, and then after 2 or 3 years, after that, he switched to Google, right? And now he's the CEO of Alphabet, right? So now you know the kind of demand there is for consultants. When it comes to skill sets, it's very diverse. Primarily, it's mainly business acumen because you have worked across different industries, different nature of projects, and different clients. Right, you said, right? So now Smriti would obviously know a lot about how government organization works. And she's also working right now, and as far as I know, she's working with a private organization, right? So now she knows how a proper established organization or a company works, right? And when it comes to skills, mainly business acumen, your and power of analysis, and how to get job done, man. And I feel these three are the top three main skills that everyone needs. When it comes to hard skills, probably not coding. Obviously, what I feel is general consultants wouldn't know a lot about coding and stuff, but they would know about a lot of business presentations and data analysis and stuff like that. Data visualization.
All right. So they in general have like the skills which one is not able to build, like an average everyday Joe is not going to exposure to. Like perhaps an SD does not get the chance to like lead impact, and thus
Exactly.
that skill is only exclusive to a certain number of jobs, out of which one primarily happens to be consulting.
Sure. So that's more or less it. So when you're comparing hard skills, obviously an SD would have an advantage over a consultant. But when you're talking about life or when you're talking about soft skills, obviously consultants have a lot more of a weight over an SD, right? So everything comes with an advantage and disadvantage, as we discussed before, right? So for a tech job, you are stuck with a particular company with a particular kind of role, right? So you have to do tech for your entire lifetime, or you have to code for your entire lifetime. Whereas here, you're working with various kind of work, right? So it's just obviously if the project and the client changes, so your nature of work and the work style would obviously change a lot, right? So how you work with a government organization would differ largely with how you work with a private organization or a listed company or a Fortune 500, right? How you work with an Indian company would largely be very different with how you work with a European company, right? So probably working style of JSW Steel is very, very different as compared to the working style of ArcelorMittal, right? Which is the largest European steel manufacturer. So you know that I have gained a lot of experience. So why do we call it as a mini MBAs? Because you have gained that hand-in-hand exposure with all these companies, with all these projects. So it's generally a trend that 2 years into consulting is equivalent to 6 years in a normal job.
Yeah, that is quite interesting.
Yeah.
We'll keep that in my mind as well. And yeah, um, these are some of the opportunities. Lakshya would like to expand more.
Sure.
And we
So,
won't favor BCG.
yeah, definitely not. Provided Aditya is going green today.
I'm just kidding.
But yes, so so I am a BITS Goa grad, just to mention the audience here. So in Goa, especially, it's McKinsey, BCG, and Carney through the PS route. For people who don't know PS route, it's a 6-month internship program which the BITS Pilani particularly offers. When it comes to Big Four consulting, almost all the consulting companies come on campus. They can be either, so from year to year, it varies either PS route or the main placement route. There's Dalberg that comes in from boutique consulting. ZS2. ZS comes in the main ZS comes in the main campus. And when it comes to Indian firms, it's mainly Indus Insights that come to our campus. I would suggest Rahul and Aditya if they can work upon what's the current scenario at Pilani.
Right. So as of right now, I'll just expand on, I guess, a couple of them. Aditya can take over from there. So as of right now, on campus, particularly there is BCG and Bain that comes on the Pilani campus to recruit every year. So far for internships, only BCG has come on campus. And usually McKinsey has an off-campus drive for like a Bitcoin exclusive drive, usually every single year, so that they can just get Bitcoins off campus. And other than that, I think Kearney as well is there, present in the off-campus route. And I think a couple years ago, last year, Weinman had also showed up. And yeah, if you would want to expand on the global boutique, Big Four and Indian firms.
I'm sorry, Rahul.
Yeah, never mind. So just to expand more, I think this year ZS has also come, and they have and like I think the results came out yesterday, in fact, for placements. And ZS is also a great firm to work at. And Dalberg also does come for the PS route every single year. And other than that, the Big Four are usually something that we see in Pilani as well. And yeah, I think that's about it. I am not sure if the Indian firms come. I'm not sure Mu Sigma particularly comes for consulting roles. I do know they come for the data science aspect of it. But yeah, that is about it for Pilani as well.
So about the Indian firms, they do not generally come out for on campus, but they mostly like throughout the internship season, they have their roles open. Like through off-campus opportunities, you can always apply to these Indian firms. I don't think so. The PU invites these Indian firms.
Yeah, just to give a heads up here, be on the lookout for any of these companies on their career page. So I was lucky enough that in my third year, yes, in my 3-1 third year first semester, I had applied for Dalberg. I had gotten a shortlist also, and I had messed up my interview big time. So that's when I knew that what kind of preparation is required for a case interview and how a case interview goes. Right, so it was a good introduction for me in order to be challenged. And before my BCG shortlist, I knew that, okay, what kind of work or what kind of prep I have to put up in order to get the interview right at BCG. So I suggest everyone to be on the lookout on the careers page for each and every part of these companies. During my time, unfortunately, MBBs never had put internship, never had that internship model only altogether. So MBB were never an option. But I would suggest that if someone couldn't get through the placement route or through the internship on-campus route, they can always try for an off-campus.
On. Yeah, so this is another interesting aspect of it. Like, Lakshya, would you like to expand how product management and consulting preparation actually ties in together?
Yeah. So, in consulting, it's mainly case interviews, right? On a very similar model, you have product interviews. So, in product interviews, you're obviously doing a root cause analysis, you're understanding customers' preferences, and then you're having those features within a particular product, right? This is what a typical product interview would be. That okay, Ola, so the Ola app has been facing this problem, or they have been facing a retention problem. How would you solve about it, right? And the most bizarre thing could be that okay, I'll provide probably a game section within Ola, so that if someone is waiting for their cab, they can obviously play till the time that the cab arrives. And that is what is being actually deployed in Uber also currently, is what I know. So in the Uber Europe app, there has been instances wherein people can play games while they are waiting for the cab, right? Within the Uber app, right? So and it'll be a very basic game. Obviously, you can't expect much, but these are basic scenarios that they can ask about, real life scenarios, and obviously the answers should be real life or logical enough for you to convince your interviewer, right? In both the interviews, you're working towards a root cause analysis. In both the interviews, you're working towards a feasible solution. And in both the interviews, you're also working on how to implement the strategy or the solutions that you're talking about, right? So this is more or less it. I know a friend of mine who had gotten a shortlist from Dalberg. Rahul, there's some echo from your end.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I know a friend who had worked who had gotten a shortlist at Dalberg. He had prepared. Unfortunately, he couldn't get through the interviews. And a couple of months after, Intuit rotational product management shows up to our campus. He never thought that he'll be a product manager himself, but he found that the preparation was damn easy because obviously he had gone through that process, right? So now all he had to do was just bring out that tech enability within him, right? Which he was able to bring out within the span of 4 or 5 days. And he excelled through the interview, and he was, I guess, the only person from our campus to get the Intuit rotational product management offer. His name is Ninad Marathe. And yes, so that's when I knew that there's a major overlap between the two roles. And obviously, hence the exit options also, right? So a lot of consultants would eventually exit into product management roles.
And just for the insight of like everyone who at least watching the Pilani, I think barring Zomato, I think all of these firms have come to campus to actually hire at one point or the other. Either they have had off-campus driver bitscians or they've actually come on campus. Example, Flipkart, SAS Labs, Limechat, Jupiter all have, and Sprinkler, like which is a star product company in Pilani, do actually come on campus. So those are always open.
And I mean, these are one of the most sought after opportunities throughout like the whole college life. People aim for Flipkart APM since the second year. So yeah.
Moving on.
Sorry.
Profile building.
No, I was saying definitely, man. It was also on my list at one point that, okay, so these are my preferences as to which companies or which roles I want to get into. And Flipkart APM was at some point in the top. Yeah. So I can't lie about it.
Cool. Moving on to... Yeah, so before like people talk about case solving a lot, but like let me just touch upon out of 300 people who apply, 10 people get their profile shortlisted. So that's a success rate of 3.3%. But like after those 10 people, 2 people get in. So case solving is not exactly the most difficult thing once you try to get into consulting. So yeah, the most important part, profile building. Okay. So like people are even asking this in the chat box. So I would just the first thing I would like to ask, how important are these like the clubs, commitments and the departments on campus? That's the first thing students face when they get into college. So according to you, Lakshya, how important these PORs, these clubs and their departments are good on your resume?
So I have been a POR person. So obviously I can't lie about it. It did help me out with the shortlist, but it's not the case, right? So I had friends. Even during Rahul's time, when there were various, there were how many people were shortlisted in your year,
So
Rahul?
there were 11 shortlists.
11. And how many were people who had actually had a consulting or a non-tech background?
2 or 3 of them.
Three, three,
Three.
like,
And the
yeah,
basically rest eight had a big either tech profile or a academic profile, right? So
absolutely.
I would suggest that clubs and departments are a great way to explore things out. I would generally give this as a 4 year plan for every student, right? So for every 4 year person, 4 year degree, I would give this that first year have the most fun, no doubt about it. Second year onwards, start exploring stuff through clubs, through various other activities on campus. By the third year, start pinpointing what actually interests you, right? So that is very necessary. And by the fourth year, be clear enough that what kind of job or what kind of role do you want to enter into, and what kind of life do you want to go ahead with. Obviously, always have a 7 year plan. That 7 year plan could always be changing every month or every 6 months, no doubt about it. But always have a 7 year plan. Apart from that, yes, talking about resumes. So first of all, we'll come to academics, CGPA. So as consulting companies, they look at spikes, right? What are spikes? Spikes are basically places where you have completely excelled, right, as compared to other shortlisted people or other peers amongst you, and you stand out between them, right? So CGPA could be something like a 9 plus or a 9.5 plus or a department rank, right? That could be a spike. Publications, obviously, if you have published a paper, or academic paper or a research paper, for sure. WorkX. So, what kind of companies have you interned at? What kind of impact you created? More than obviously. So, we'll have a look at each of our resumes too. I'm sure we'll have that within our agendas, right, Rahul and Aditya?
Yeah, we do. We have like snippets of each of our
Yeah.
resumes to actually display what helped us get into the shortlist.
Great, great. So we'll have a good conversation about it too. Just to give a brief here, so obviously the brand name or the company matters, but more than that, what matters is your impact. I was never asked about my EY experience, but I was asked about my JSW Steel experience because that stood out as compared to other peers. Because EY experience a lot of people had, to be very honest, within my shortlisted time, because there was a competition. I don't know if it's continued yet or not, EY CAFTA competition through which you get a EY internship, right? So a lot of people had won during my time, were runner-ups, and who were rewarded the EY internship, right? So I was asked mainly about my JSW Steel internship and my entrepreneurial journey back in first year. So you can imagine that, okay, obviously brand name too matters. Obviously JSW Steel is a big brand name, but I was able to showcase a lot of impact within that, or I had a lot of impact within that tenure of my internship, because of which I was asked about it mainly. Now PORs, right? So PORs are a great way to showcase your leadership. It's as simple as that, right? So if you have a POR, it clearly shows that you are a multitasker, wherein you have managed your acads, you have managed your work experience, as well as you were able to lead a good bunch of people, right? So, for example, I was lucky enough to lead the consulting club of my campus, with Goa Consulting Club. And during my time, there were about 60 to 70 people. So now you know, and that bunch used to consist of my seniors, my juniors, and people of my batch too, right? So now you know that, okay, a good leadership intent is needed in order to manage this organization and in order to successfully end your tenure within the next 1 year, right? You have to show personal impact. You have to, mainly it's organizational impact, but also personal impact indulged within that resume pointer. And then there are extracurricular achievements. So I am a big sports guy. I like watching a lot of sports. Unfortunately, post my injury back in 10th standard, I wasn't able to play anything professionally. But yes, before that I used to play. So that's great. If you're into dance, music, sports, that is something that sets you apart because probably part of being a part of consulting club, anyone can do it. To be very honest, right? All you need is probably case solving abilities, but probably winning a dance competition or being in a music band that requires special skills, right? So it should be a part of your resume, no doubt about it. um, B plan competitions, yes, definitely. They were there in my resume too. Volunteer work, I have never done, unfortunately. So it's just on my birthdays that I do, but I have never been a part of any NGOs particularly. So that was never there in my resume. But yes, so these are certain categories in which you can show your spikes. Apart from that, we'll have a look at each of our resumes and then we'll have a good discussion as to what could be our spikes within our resume.
Absolutely. I think next up is our resume, if I'm not wrong. Oh, okay. Before that, we have a couple other things. So I guess so. Would you like to discuss these, Lakshya?
Sure. So rather than just going on each and every pointer, let's just go out it on a very brief note because this session is for first years and second years. So mainly it's about showing impact within your resume. How do you craft your words? No doubt about it. You need to make sure that within your each and every resume pointer, there should be an impact, right? You should have a variety of things within your resume. So for me, there were my work experience, my PORs, my case competitions, and a little bit of sports also, right? And this would vary for Rahul as well as Aditya, right? The don'ts would be obviously grammatical errors, no doubt about it. It should strictly be a one pager because I remember someone told me that as college students, you haven't nailed it enough to have a two-pager resume within your life, right? So you can understand that as a college student, all you need is a one pager. Fonts. The thing is that I never used these external resume templates. All I had to use was this superset template, right? And which had a very basic UI UX and very easy to use UI UX, which I was very fond of, to be very honest, on a personal scale. So yes, make sure that the size is not too big, not too small. Probably a font size of 8 or 9 within that. Grammatical error, no doubt about it. Obviously, resume. So under each and every work so when I was reviewing a lot of resumes this time, I figured out that there are a lot of people who are putting paragraphs within their work right? Which is not the case, right? You have to be structured also within your own resume. You need to show your structured thinking within your own resume if you are applying for a consult job, right? And so make sure that you're following a STAR framework, which is situation, task, action, result. As simple as that. So you basically define a situation first and what was the task assigned to you, what was the action that you did, and what was the overall result or impact, right? And try not exceeding one line for a point, which is a general pointer. But the reason behind that is that you need to reduce white space within your resumes, right? So what happens is that if you have a half liner pointer, then the other half would be a white space for you, right? So either make a full liner pointer or a double liner pointer, and that should be the general do's and don'ts for the resumes. And I've told you about the logic too. I guess Rahul is stuck, right?
Yeah, Rahul is stuck.
Okay.
Just some issues with the Wi-Fi.
Okay, with Wi-Fi things, yeah. Aditya, why not you present it and then we can
Yeah,
forward,
sure.
no?
Yeah. Yes.
And we'll ask Rahul to...
I'll ask him.
Because there'll be too much of a burden on the bits net itself, yeah. Obviously, it's too slow and it's too fluctuating.
I'll take it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
So
Your screen is visible.
Now let's move forward with like how our resumes look like and what seem to be like the potential spike that people like, that the recruiters like the product.
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, Lakshya.
Yeah, this is not my entire resume, yaar. You have
Yeah,
taken a
so
skip here.
correct. So like I thought like just the major things we would think because the entire resume.
Let's do one thing. If you could present my entire resume, that'll be
Sure,
great, so
I'll
that
do
I
that.
can talk about that. What was not a spike for me and what was a spike for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just text a Rahul that he's stuck.
Okay, so
Okay, great. This is more or less that I needed. So this was the exact resume that I'd sent for my BCG shortlist. If you could just zoom it a little, probably at that's better. Okay, so obviously you can have a look at CGPA. So CGPA was never a spike for me. It was 8.2. So for CGPA being a spike, it should be at least above 8.7, 8.9, and 9 plus is considered actually to be a spike, right? How did I? So I had designed my buckets in a very different manner. So I had first made sure that there were certain academic distinctions or co-curricular achievements that I wanted to showcase. Then it was the WorkX, then it was the POR, then the projects, and then the extracurriculars, if I'm not wrong, right? Can you just scroll it down?
yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's go up. Okay, so co-curricular achievements mainly, I had an offer from CIB, which was my PS. So now you can see, okay, how did I design my pointer on that? Scholastic achievements. So I was majorly a finance guy. I had to true love for finance, which was heartbroken by the JPCIB division, wherein when I actually entered into the industry, I understood that how difficult it is, and it's not for me. So I understood that. So WorkX included EY, JSW Steel. Then I had a brief stint as my PS1 at MSys, which is a IT service management IT service management company. And then there was in my first year, I had a very brief entrepreneurial stint wherein I had worked with a couple of seniors on their very new venture. It's known as Strategy right now. And it was a great way for me to explore a lot of things. So I was able to code, I was able to use Power BI, I was able to use Excel, I learned Python and whatnot, right? So that was a great way for me to get introduced to a lot of hard skills as well as to a lot of finance, because it was obviously a fintech company. So I had to know a lot of financial jargons too. So that was great. That was a very, very good experience for me. And that's when I realized, okay, probably coding is not something long-term sustainable for me, which is why somewhere near finance or somewhere near consulting role would be the best choice. Till that time, I knew only finance. So let's go with finance. JSW Steel, great internship, had a great time there. One of my best internships, very good projects that I worked on personally. So I had a lot of fun there. MSys was more of a remote internship, so which is why it was okay that I was able to contribute to a lot of impact directly or indirectly. But eventually it was stuck at the remote end of things and similar to EY too. Let's go on to the PR aspect.
So just one thing, with JSW internship, were you managing it with CATS? Because I can see the timeline from July 21 to October 21.
Yeah, so during that time, it was my 3-1 and I had 4 finance courses and 4 CDCs. So my entire
this semester
my entire academic was booked. Yeah, luckily it was, that time the college were going remotely. And I had to visit the office 3 times a week. And I was lucky enough. So I used to travel from Thane to BKC 3 times a week during the peak COVID period, just right after the Delta variant. But it was a great experience, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I can see now.
Met a lot of people who are actually experienced in the industry, who had experiences more than 30 years, man. More than 30 years. And they knew intricacies of each and every aspect of manufacturing of steel, which was something great as an
Yeah, great.
experience altogether.
Correct.
Then comes POR. So the Consult Club gave me a good opportunity to experience consulting. Hi, Rahul, back here.
I am
Yeah.
back. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Let's have Aditya share the this,
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
which net would obviously fluctuate a lot. Yes, so we were at the POR aspect. Consult Club gave me a lot of exposure towards actually how a consulting projects work, how a consulting world works, right? So be it from projects, be it from client acquisition. So how our consulting club used to work was we used to pick up these various projects from these startups, social enterprises, and NGOs, right? And we used to work on them for about 2 months, 3 months. They used to vary a lot. So it can be an 8 week or a 12 week project. And yes, that was a great experience for me to get introduced to the front end of things, as we call about, right? So obviously it's a small club, it's a college club, right? So obviously the span or the extent of the projects would be very small. You can't compare it to what a BCG, what a project with BCG does. But we were able to get clients across various other countries, US, Dubai, Singapore. We were able to do a project with a unicorn, which was one of our major hits, 2 projects, and 3 more projects with various multi-million dollar clients too. So that was great. And since it was a very budding club during my tenure, so I had to work on a lot of administration, I had to work on a lot of growth. So a lot of multitasking along with managing my accounts, because I was always focused towards my finance minor as a degree, and I always wanted to explore that, excel in that, right? And which is why it was a great way for me to show leadership as well as my multitasking skills there. PIEDS was a great experience. It was a brief stint, to be very honest, personally, but it was more about founding it within my Goa tenure. How we were able to work with a lot of startups which were incubated, understood the entire incubation ecosystem, which I never had the opportunity to. Right, so that was a great experience altogether. Then comes so these were various projects, right? So I would typically recommend. So there are 2 ways in which you can show your projects under the project section of your resume. Either you can list out a variety of projects which shows diversity, or you could show just 2 projects in which you can show the kind of impact that you created, right? In my case, I wanted to show a variety of projects that I personally worked upon. So, which is why I had listed out various kinds of projects. Majorly, the best one was with a multi-asset investment fund, wherein we were building a crypto asset valuation model. Can you imagine how bizarre is that, right? So, how would you value a crypto asset, right? And we were able to come to a logical solution wherein we were able to value major crypto coins like Ethereum, Bitcoin, and stuff like that. When it comes to extracurriculars, it was mainly case competition and sports. Case competition, I was lucky enough to be the runner-up for the EY CAFTA case championship. And the best thing about it is that you get awarded your EY internship. So through this case competition, I was awarded the internship, which is mentioned at the top of my WorkX. And there were other consulting competitions that I had worked on with 180 degrees of DU and with a particular DU college too. When it comes to sports, a brief stint before my injury happened. So it was mainly table tennis and lawn tennis. And yes, that's more or less it about my overall resume. What I can say is that the major spikes within my resume would be typically analyzing it myself, my WorkX, because I don't feel any other person apart from me and a couple of guys that I know, couple of people that I know about, had WorkX of more than 4 to 5 companies. PORs, and probably either projects or extracurriculars. I don't know what. But yes, that's more or less it. All in all, you want to show a well-rounded resume. That means that this guy or a girl has a good personality, and he or she would fit into the firm, right? That's more or less about it. Wherein the person is academically decent. I wasn't very bad also, but 8.2 I feel is a decent CGPA to live up to. And
It's good.
PORs, work-ex, projects, and obviously extra. So the purpose of that extracurricular segment is to showcase your personality or yourself. As to apart from the normal stuff that I generally see in the resumes, what are your interests? So I know someone who had put in poker as one of his interests, and who one person
Did
I
he
know
get
was-
shortlisted?
Yeah, he was shortlisted. And he is also joining BC. I don't know if he had put it in his final resume or not, but he had put it in one of the iterations. And you obviously, when you're building your resume, you go through a lot of iterations while you're vetting your resume with various senior.
So like from what I've heard, like they look towards like a diverse resume and they want you to have done something in your college life like throughout.
Exactly. So you need to show that you are a proactive kid. That's
Correct.
more or less it.
And they
Right?
don't want a particular domain on your resume. You just have to show that you have done something, be it any domain.
Be it any domain. Exactly. So be it any domain, you have excelled into it. That's what they need. That's what
So
they
yeah,
need.
like as you said in our college, during the shortlist, people were like the people who were shortlisted were themselves not expecting to be shortlisted because they were like, I haven't even touched consulting in my entire life. And they
No
were,
doubt about it.
I mean, they have research interns, they do coding like all the times, but their resumes got shortlisted.
Yeah, no doubt about
So
it.
yeah, so like that's like the
They
biggest myth
had-
when people say consulting resumes.
They had excelled within their tech domain. So
Correct.
obviously, even if you look at their resumes also, no, apart from tech, they had also mentioned various extracurricular achievements,
Correct.
what they have done, right? And which was a showcase of an overall personality, which was liked by the recruiters, right? And that's why they shortlisted. So that's nice.
Okay, I guess we can move on to Rahul's resume. Just a second. Rahul.
Gonna be very weird. Yeah. Because Khandela and I was sitting yesterday and we were just stressed out कि लगाए नहीं लगाए resume.
We just add snippets like what we think.
Yeah, what
wanted to
we
talk about.
think would have
For
helped
the
out the
spikes.
most.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say it was my internships and my volunteering experience which primarily stood out. Volunteering is something which I've noticed not a lot of people actually have in depth while they're at an undergraduate scale. So diving into the volunteering experience first, it was just a NGO which I joined back in Bombay, and I've been working with them for almost 2 years now. And this is genuinely, and I think this was also asked to me in my first round that, okay, this seems interesting, like after my introduction. And they just like had a discussion about it as well. So this is something which definitely I think stood out. And other than that, interns is something I've done very proactively since first year. So I was very lucky to have like a very, very wide range of interns, with none of them being in the same field nearly. So one was automotive, one was, I don't know how to classify IIT Kanpur here. That was more like just being a developer. And finally, just working in the CEO's office at Quality Kiosk Technologies. I mean, nothing else much to expand over here. Khandelwal's resume is much more impressive than mine.
Oh, no much. I was like, I don't want to put my resumes up there with these two guys.
Yeah, and what was your CGPA round?
Mine, which I applied with, was 8.5.
Okay.
So yeah, from what I know, I think it's majorly divided into 3 buckets. I might be wrong about this, but I think it's 9 plus, 8 plus, and then cutoff plus. They usually how they divide it.
So how it happens is from the trend that I've seen. Obviously, I haven't been a part of recruiting committee to be very crystal clear about it here. 8 plus is something of a good cushion, right, for you to get a shortlist. Minimum of 8 plus. If you're below 8, then you have to have achieved something very, very good. For example, one of so one of the people that who's joining me is Soumya Thomas, and she had a CGPA, if I'm not wrong, about 7.8, but she had an internship, product management internship at Adobe. So now you know, right? So what was her spike, which kind of overcame her lack in CGPA, right? So you need to have, if so in general for consulting resumes, or in general for MBBs for that matter, 8 plus is a must. For McKinsey's, I have heard it's even difficult because they are a little more stricter on the academic side.
Okay. So I mean, a decent resume overall and like a one intensity goes good. Okay, coming on to my So from what I believe, like so WorkX part, I had a couple of internships, but I didn't think that was my spike. My spike would have been probably CGPA and my PORs on campus. So yeah, I had 9 plus CGPA when I applied. And PORs would be like I had the consulting experience working in Share at my college, and coordinator of the department and coordinator of the consulting committee here, and member of like the finance club here. And I made a couple of projects, like user facing projects, which I believe contributed towards the diversity in my resume. Not only a single sided consulting resume, but also some aspect of tech involved in it. So yeah, these two were user facing resumes, and they were rolled down, and probably like more than 200 people use these things. And so yeah, these things I believe were the spike in my resume.
So one question actually I wanted to just ask Lakshya here was, so I saw your projects were like a bit different. Like usually when I think of projects, it leans towards tech. So just for the viewer, like is it also just okay to like include, like example, you had included your stint as a consultant for your consulting club as a project. So is that also something that is like good enough? Because I personally have never seen that. Like I've seen what Trindelwal's thing is.
Yeah. So I had gotten this as a feedback when I had showed a lot of people my resume within Pilani. But eventually I decided that, okay, see, resume is a personal thing, right? It's a personal story. It's how you believe, it's what you believe in, and it's how you want to showcase the world at how you are, right? So I wanted to showcase that, okay, I was a proactive guy and I've done variety of projects rather than just focusing on a couple of projects, which is why most of my projects are one-liners wherein I'm explaining a brief and explaining a brief about the company. And those were the projects that I did in my second year with the consultant. Whereas in my third year, since I had the POR, so it was mostly administrative activities in which I was involved in. So I never got a chance to work on projects, but rather I was only working from an administrative point of view, managing things across, right? So it's a personal choice, man. I feel that it can be either you can and in most of the resumes that I have seen personally, I have seen the Aditya kind wherein they have focused on 2 projects and under which they are focusing on the impact. But yeah, it was a personal choice. That's it.
Yeah, so moving on to the consulting profile myths, I guess we discussed that amongst the discussion of our resume. Like there's no such, the biggest myth, there's no such thing as a consulting resume. I mean, all you need to do is show a page, and in that one page, you need to show that you have done something in your college life and like throughout. And if that's good enough, you are shortlisted. I mean, if I have to summarize it in a single line. So
Definitely,
any particular thing, Rahul, Lakshya, think is a myth like inside?
I too generally feel is that tech people generally are like, okay, probably this is not my field, or this is. I know for a fact that before me, so before my year, there was a guy called Rahulraj. He went into McKinsey, now is at Sequoia, and he had a complete tech profile, man. Complete tech profile. And I know a lot of people within when we were shortlisted, out of 10 people, 6 people had either tech background or an academic background. So you can actually imagine that, okay, probably tech people have more of an advantage within their profile. But yes, either they had a very good CGPA, no doubt about it, or they they had very good internships. And the best thing about is that even these tech people, they were able to use the very simple resume pointers and showcase their resume in a very beautiful manner. The problem is that I knew a friend who had a 9 plus CGPA who had internships better than me. Aditya Birla Capital was one of his internship, but he didn't know how to showcase his resume at that point, right? So he didn't know the basic rules that okay, probably one liner, or the major rule is that obviously you want to reduce your white spaces, right? You want to bucket things out, focus on impact. These were very simple pointers which a lot of people forget about it or forget to follow, right? And which is why even despite having a great profile or a great resume, they are not able to get the shortlist.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I'd like to reiterate the exact same thing. Like, I think Pilani this time, only 3 out of the 11 profiles would be considered even close to the conventional tech profile, like, or the consulting profile.
Yeah.
In fact, like, 3 were like hardcore research, like, with no other internship other than research interns in every single stint with multiple publications. But yet, they are the ones who shown quite often. And just that, like, for the viewers, keep it genuinely is nothing like a consulting profile, which people keep asking us about. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
correct.
just
I mean,
about
like,
how you showcase your impact. That's it.
correct. Matlab, there are a lot of questions in the chat box. How to make your resume more consulting friendly? What sort of interns are required for consulting? I mean, that's one thing great about consulting. You don't need to focus on consulting throughout your college life, and you can still work on other things and do the case solving in the last month and get into it. So it does not nail you down career wise or exploration wise. You can still explore things, do good in it, create an impact over there, and at the end you can still have this opportunity with you.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So moving on. Yeah. So preparing for the case interview. So the second part of to get into consulting, to get into a good firm, is case interview. Once the resume shortlisting is done. So
The
why
easier part.
the easier part? Yeah. And the part that about which most people worry about, I don't understand. They're like case comes with
Exactly.
all
Yeah. I genuinely get requests from people that okay, next year BCG is coming, we'll start preparing for
yeah,
cases
they
right now.
ask for
And
case
I'm like,
notes.
you can easily get the preparation. I know Aditya did it within 7 days, right?
Yeah.
5 days, 7 days,
Five. Right.
5, right? You were traveling for for the first
The
2 days,
initial two.
right?
Yeah.
Rahul did it in 8 days. Exactly. Because I know because I was one of his unofficial mentors. We had lots of time. So we were lucky enough that BCG gave us 20 days. But I feel that about 15 days is the most optimum time, at least for the associate role. But for SIPs also, they are asking on a very similar scale only. So probably I know that Aditya and Rahul were on a major disadvantage and they can guide people about case interviews in a much better fashion than me because they had the time constraint also and they had no experience at all. So yeah.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, what I would like to say is कि case solving is something that it's already inside you. It's not any hard skill. You just need to structure your thoughts and think logically. And no matter how much time you give, it's not that like if you give 1 year, you'll start thinking more logically. It's just that how much time you need to develop a particular structure in the way you think. And someone can get it within 5 days, 7 days, 8 days, 10 days, max to max a month, and not more than that. But to build your profile, that's something that takes like more than a year. So I mean, it's quite clear what one needs to focus upon more. Yeah,
And just a very quick thing here was that, like, yeah, genuinely, sometimes people just look into it too. I think, like, during Aditya's interview only, he said, like, can you please throw out all the frameworks that you have in your brain and actually just walk me through what your raw brain is thinking? And that is actually quite often is MDPs want, or like just your PLs want. They just want to see how well you're thinking rather than how well you can case solve quite often. And that's what happened in my second round as well. So yeah.
Yeah, similar thing happened with my MDP interview also. He was like that, I have just 15 minutes with me. Let's brainstorm on this problem together and let's solve it across. Or whatever root causes that you can think of. Just list me out. That's it, completely. Right? So obviously a structure helps you out to get those root causes, but it's not like that I'm explaining him a profitability framework or I'm explaining him a market entry framework, right? He just wanted those lists, that what are the possible problems. And by the end of it, we were able to reach out 9 problems, if I'm not wrong. And I missed the only one that was in his mind. So he was happy that, okay, this guy, he was able to list out 9 problems, right? The 10th one was somewhat correlated to another problem, right? But I couldn't reach out to that particular problem, right? So, and it's completely fine for you to not reaching out to the end result. What the person wants is your expansion towards the brain, right? So it should be the Misi rule, right? So all the problems should be exclusive enough. They shouldn't have an overlap with each other, and they should be exhaustive enough, right? So when the exhaustive method came, I lagged. Obviously, it was 90% for me out of 100%, right? But he was happy that, okay, I was able to list out 9 problems altogether, right? So that was where he kind of got convinced that, okay, probably this guy we can hire, right? That's what you want, right? So you just want to convince one partner over your level 0 thinking, as we call it.
Yeah. I mean, they don't want a mechanical structure. They just want to see how well you can structure your own thoughts.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you like forcefully try to structure things, that's a red flag.
And I'm sure Aditya had a very different case experience. No, you were interviewed by not Indian MDPs, but you were interviewed by...
No, he was an Indian, but in some like Philadelphia office.
Oh.
And that guy was straight up like, I have seen this structure in books. I don't want you to use it. Just think. It's like, okay. Yeah. So,
and just to clarify here, I went into BCG through the on-campus route, through the placement process. Rahul here is through the on-campus route, through the internship process. And Aditya is someone who went through the off-campus route, winning a competition, getting an interview, and then making it. So yes, you have all 3 people around who can give you variety of experiences altogether. And yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just one thing. There's not a single way to enter these things. There's not a single mechanical way. From my experience, I just got stuck up with a competition, worked in it for like a month or 2, and my resume shortlisting was replaced by this competition.
Exactly. So, and if you aren't able to get through any of these routes, then the best route would be an MBA, right? And I feel that we couldn't touch upon it, so we can touch upon it on a very brief manner. But so the best thing about Indian MBAs is that they hire fresher undergrads right out of college. All you need is a good CAT score. That's it. And I feel that every BITSian, no matter what the branch is, if you are getting into BITS or if you are getting into a college which is better than BITS, then you have the ability to crack a 99.5 plus percentile easily. That I can assure you. And above 99.5, you can easily get a shortlist from A, B, C, L minimum and XLRL, right? So these are one of the, so before BCG happened, even I personally was preparing for CAT because I felt that, okay, so I was crystal clear that I want to enter into a front-end job. And the best ways I could enter into a middle office role, investment banking role, was the JPMorgan investment banking role. Second, the most riskless or risk-free manner on how can you get into the industry, right? So that was my cushion comfort there, that okay. And I understood while giving my first paper itself that okay, probably if I happen to not crack CAT this year, I'll be able to crack CAT next year or in my second attempt or in my third attempt. You get an idea, right? So when I had given JEE Advanced, I knew that okay, this is out of my league, man. Probably I'm not made for this, right? But when I saw CAT paper, it's just 9th, 10th ka maths in the con section. In the verbal section, obviously I had certain difficulties with RCs. So I had to work on my speed with RCs. So basically improving my reading speed. And third was DILR. DILR is mainly about selecting the right sections at the right point or the right comprehensions at the right point. Right? So this is a general brief that I can give about CAT. You have other options also. Either you can go for GRE or GMAT. GRE is mainly for masters in technical expertise, so masters in finance, masters in management, masters in science, which is generally what people follow with above 9.5 CGPA. And GMAT is something for MBA, right? And nowadays, MBA colleges are also accepting GRE scores. So make sure that you are not putting all your eggs in one basket, is what I mean, right? So make sure that you're cracking CAT, you're working on GMAT. GMAT offers you these best kick-ass deferred programs with Harvard, with Stanford, with Wharton and whatnot. And obviously CAT is the best space because with GMAT or with an abroad MBA, you need to have a minimum of 2 to 3 year work ex, right? Whereas with CAT, it's mainly right out of college, you enter into a B school, and that's the easiest way to get into a good IB job. Probably Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, JPMorgan, who are paying like crores. 1 crore is the current remuneration that I got to know about with JPMorgan offers for these IM grads. Obviously, the hiring rate is much less. They hire hardly 2 to 3 people across A, B, C, right? So you can, obviously the competition is much, but for at least McKinsey, BCG, Bain, the most easiest method is to go through IM, ABC and then get into the firm.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, so yeah, there are multiple options. If you feel like 1, 2, there's always a third, fourth option.
Yeah, no doubt.
Correct. So yeah, just briefly going over what is a case interview. I mean, like Rahul and I will be taking offline sessions in the coming week to give like the exact idea of how to solve the case. But yeah, just to give it a touch. So what is a case? Basically, case is an open-ended problem. It's a real-world problem that clients or anyone in the industries might face. Or sometimes it can be an unconventional one, but at that too quite realistic. And yeah, the basics, the standard type of cases that consulting firms ask are guesstimates, profitability, market entry, growth, unconventional, and sometimes they go ahead and ask pricing and other cases as well. And there are basic frameworks to solve the cases, which we recommend don't stick upon, just practice with them and try to structure your thoughts according to those frameworks. And yeah, Lakshya, would you like to elaborate on these things?
To be honest, since you will be taking the offline sessions, so it's much better that you actually deep dive into each and every type of problems. But what I'll suggest is any case interview, even a 10-year-old can solve it, no doubt about it. All you need to make sure is whatever assumptions that you're making, you are verbal about it. You are crystal clear about the context. If you, for example, I was given a case about the disease anemia. I didn't know rat shit about it. I had to ask, what is anemia? And there's no feeling of that, okay, probably the interviewer would think that I'm dumb enough, right? It's not that, right? It's as simple as asking the right questions, asking the most silliest doubts. But if you're able to justify those doubts, if you're able to justify those questions, well and good, right? That's how you need to make sure that how you're solving cases. Types of cases, obviously, mainly it's guesstimates, profitability, market entry, and unconventional, on which generally we are focused on, because growth is somewhat a mixture of market entry or unconventional, right? So all other cases, even when Aditya was asked about an M&A case, it was a clear
it was just a maths case, yeah.
Math case, right? I remember Rahul's case. Rahul, what was your case with your MDP?
No, my MDP just pitched me the benefits of UPI. That's it.
Just benefits of UPI. But he was able to structure it out with a level 0 thinking. And that's what probably that MDP would have liked. And hence recruited Rahul, right?
Yeah.
That's what you need to show.
First principle thinking.
Yeah. Just first principle thinking, and that's it. And that'll take you places.
Yeah. So as like he said, highlighted, one thing I would like to highlight, just keep your mental maths good. That's something that you can get stuck upon any time during a case. Your mental maths should be good.
Yeah. For example, if you're given 75 into 45, how would you solve it? You don't need to have an exact answer. Obviously, you're required to make approximations and assumptions. So either you can do 80 into 40 or 70 into 50. the answer would be the exact average of these two figures, right? But eventually you can always, okay, if the answer is 3375, then I can always give it as 3500 or 3200. That's okay. Making approximations is fine. You don't need to have that mental math. Okay, probably 1.9 divided by 8. What is the answer? I'm stuck. I don't. Divided by 2, divided by 8. That's a very similar. The 0.25 is the answer, right? So probably that 1.9 divided by 8 would be 0.24, 0.23, along the very similar lines, right? So, and whenever you're making approximations, just speak it out that, okay, it's the answer is 0.23. Is it okay if I estimate it to 0.25? And obviously the person is, so as an engineer, you are expected not to fuck up your maths.
Yeah.
Right. And that's it. Like, just be very accurate, not accurate, but very confident with math. I know I had interviewed one guy or a girl, I don't remember. His or her math was completely right. I just asked that person that, could you just check this again? And that person got very flustered. Right? You had to be all he or she had to be was to be confident with the math. That's it. That's the entire thing. I just wanted to make sure that if there's a sense of doubt, if I create a sense of doubt, how that person would react, because that happens in the real world. Case interviews are a way to prep you for the real world, right? That's it. In a very minimized or in a very simplistic manner.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, just like as you said, any assumptions or approximations that you may try to get it validated from the interviewer, like throughout the case, just keep that guy involved.
Yeah.
Cool. Moving on. I mean, like you'll learn a lot more about case solving and what exactly cases are through the sessions that will take place. Yeah. Let's move on to the preparation, like the basic timeline. Just like we'll just brief it, how exactly the timeline to get into consulting works. Yeah, Lakshya, would you like to?
It's a very general timeline. It's basically when the companies come, they'll give you a brief session about how we are as a company, blah, blah, blah. Okay, basically a summarization of this entire session, right? What is consulting? What is BCG? How BCG is good? How BCG is bad? Obviously, whatever opportunity is available for you within McKinsey BCG Bain, you have to grab it, right? When it comes to so then after that, you are given a certain period of time to prepare your resume, right? It's about a week's time you're given before you have to submit your resume within the deadline, and you are required to validate it also through the superset, if I'm not wrong. So you have to upload all your documents for whatever. So you have to verify it through the superset, right? So whenever you're mentioning any resume pointer, make sure that you have backed up enough resources in order to verify it. So for example, if I am saying that, okay, I had a 9 GPA in finance minor, so obviously I have to upload my documents, a snippet of my entire 5 courses of finance, and the cumulative of which should be equal to 9. Then there's deadline. After that, they take about a week wherein they announce the shortlist, and then the buddy process begins. Buddy process is to make sure that each and every shortlisted candidate is well prepared for his or her interview. That's as simple as that. It generally varies. So this time they had given about 8 to 9 days, if I'm not wrong. I'm talking about this. So this timeline is particularly of an on-campus route. So buddy processes vary from 9 to 15 or 20 days, right? So Rahul was given about 8 to 9 days. I was lucky enough, we were given about 19, 20 days. But I feel 14 to 15 days or 2 weeks is the most optimum timeline. But for SIP candidates, they generally give a brief timeline. I don't know why. Then the interview day happens. So on the interview day, particularly, you have 2 compulsory rounds. This is for the associate role that I'm talking about. So 2 compulsory rounds, 2 PL rounds, which will be compulsory, which would be given as an opportunity to every shortlisted candidate. After that, elimination rounds happen. So so I remember that we were 10 people who were shortlisted. Out of those 10 people, 5 people were scraped out post the principal round, PL round, principal or the project leader round. And post that, the partner round happens. And each and every partner round is an elimination round. And you don't know, it might be possible that you are required to get off the call right after your first partner interview. But that's okay. Probably you have convinced your partner that you are the right fit for the company, or probably he or she feels that, okay, probably this candidate is not well enough for us to join the firm. So it can work either the two ways, right? And generally people have about one partner interview, two partner interviews, or maximum of three. So in the entire day, a minimum of 3 interviews would happen for you, or 2 interviews would happen for you, or a maximum of 5 interviews can happen till 8 p.m. and you're required to join the call at 7:45 a.m. if I'm not. So the process is a little haywire on the interview day. But yes, and on the very same day they announced the results. No doubt about it.
That was not the case for me, to be fair. They had me in the dark for a day. And they had me waiting for 2 hours, and they're like, yeah, now your result will be announced tomorrow.
Oh, so off campus is a little different then.
Yeah, we didn't have buddies, and
Achha, you didn't have buddies?
No.
So how did you prepare?
Ourselves only.
So then, did you had anyone who helped you out with the preparation?
I talked to seniors, your batch only.
Acha, okay. Rahul ka I know the entire preparation. Rahul, you want to speak about it?
Yeah, so
it's all credit to Lakshya.
I mean, yeah, they actually do. He did give me a lot of tips, which I think I've never ever heard before. Even my seniors haven't heard before. So I think in general, it's the exact same. So the summer intern on-campus procedure, the entire procedure is the exact same up to the interview day. So I am not sure, but I think I'm pretty sure it is just 2 interviews that everyone has. And both of them are progress. It's round 1 is also elimination, round 2 is elimination. Round 1 is usually taken by a PL, and round 2 is taken by an MDP. And the case can be anything from what I've understood. The first round, I had an M&A case, someone else had a profitability case, and in the MDP round, I had I do not know what to categorize the case as. An unconventional case perhaps. Someone else had a market entry case. So that is the types of question are extremely variable, and the results usually, I think for Goa and Pilani both came within 4 hours of the entire procedure getting over. One thing which a candidate should know, you have to wake up at 8 a.m. for the interview process to start. So it can be quite a harrowing experience, people coming out of the calls whenever at any given point of time. Different experience altogether.
Yeah, that's the entire gist of it. I know I'm not a morning person and I had to struggle so much. I couldn't sleep a night before, and but then it's okay. Eventually things happen for you. So
it is a great experience, all in all. For the interview, waiting in that meeting, breakout room, just staring at your name.
And it's somewhat of an experience that you'll remember for a good part of your life, is what I can say for sure. That you have the stress, you have the pressure, but you don't know where things are going. Because, case interviews are something very new. Every case would be new to you. You can't expect that something that you have solved, right? Probably it could be of the similar industry, right? But it would never be a same case as you have solved before. Right. So the process of buddy rounds, or the process of that preparation round, is to make sure that the candidate is prepared for something new by the end of it.
Okay.
That's more or less it. In case anyone has any questions, then we can probably refer to that. And
are there any questions that were being asked in the chat box? We discussed people were asking about the PORs and how to make a resume consulting friendly. And let's jump to the question at the end.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So the last thing that we would like to touch upon here is brain teasers and guesstimates. So one thing about this case solving thing that we discussed is that these cases are quite interesting. As Lakshya said, that cases can be solved by a 10-year-old. So this thing particularly about consulting fascinates people. They're like it forces them to think logically, and most of the time people like it. They like to think logically. Everyone likes to solve riddles and everything. So these are like just extended version of real world result riddles. Like estimates are, to be fair. So like just to take a sample question here, like for all the Pilani people, what is the revenue of Krishna Reddy? I'm sure all of you have been there. So yeah, matlab, Lakshya, would you like to take over?
Sure, man. So, what do you want me to solve this?
No, no, not now. Like just like first of all, I would actually want people to just think about it and what do they think is the annual revenue of Krishna Reddy? Just drop the answers in the chat box.
Okay, probably let's make sure that we can put up a mail ID on which they can mail us their entire solution. Make sure that the solution is structured enough, and make sure that the answer is answer is somewhat feasible. And let's look at only the monthly revenue of Krishna Reddy.
Sure.
And yes, and let's see how the structure happens. So focus on structure rather than answers is what I'll suggest to each and every candidate, and they can mail us out. That's not a problem.
Sure. So all of you can mail it out on
give a treat to them, no doubt about it. So the best answers would get a treat.
Cool. So yeah, the best answers will get a treat, and you can mail it to the consulting committee email ID. I'll probably ask her to drop it in the chat box.
Sure.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, just try to solve it, and the best solution gets a treat.
Sure.
At Krishna Reddy or any other.
Had they been in Thane or Mumbai, I would have given them a good treat. But I'm sure Rahul and Aditya would do the honors.
Yeah, would do.
Absolutely.
But like for validation, we'll also ask the Krishna Reddy uncle ki itna hi anaap kare.
Okay. So the sanity check is also done on a real-time basis.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess that wraps up the session. And like that's probably all you need for getting into consulting. Just build your profile, work on case solving towards the end. We just don't go about asking people how to solve cases. That's something that you can do in the very last month. We just focus on your profile and focus on exploring other things as well. That's what I would like to say. And
focus on deciding things, what do you want to do on a long-term basis. It shouldn't be that you have entered into a certain industry and that you're not liking it. For example, when I entered into finance, I was a big finance guy. When I was back in college, I really used to love finance. Although my finance GPA was just 9, I could have done better, I know it. But from the depth of it is something that I really like. But when I entered into industry, when I saw things around, that's when I got to know that probably this is not for me. Probably the kind of work that happens for the first 6 years, 7 years is not something that I want to do from a long-term basis, right? And that's when you actually understand that, okay, there is something that is much better out there for you. And luckily, this was there, and how I knew that probably consulting is something best. And I was damn sure by the end of my third year that one way or another, I want to enter into something which is client-facing, which is front-end, and solving problems, and something that I'm not bored of in the long term. At least right out of college or right out of my MBA. Within my 20s, I want to do work which doesn't bore me, and that's when I knew that okay, consulting and IB is something which suits me out. I tried IB, it didn't work. Like I hope consulting works. So that's it.
Yeah. Okay, so someone's asking what's the full form of MDP? MDP is Managing Director Partner.
Managing Director Partner. So there are various categories of partner, MDP, which is Managing Director Partner, and then MDSP, which is Managing Director Senior Partner. Generally, MDSP don't take interviews, it's MDPs. And what we meant by PL round is project leader rounds.
Yeah.
So your first 2 rounds, which are compulsory rounds as an associate, candidate would be taken by a project leader or a principal. And after that, you go into the partner rounds, which are elimination rounds.
Okay, so one person is, what are the best resources to start getting into and exploring the field of consulting while in college? So I mean, like there are the resources you use is for case solving. Apart from that, you just need to build your profile first. And for that, you don't need any resources. You just need to create an impact in whatever you're doing. Like it should be worthwhile and it should feel like from like just imagine if you are an recruiter and you're trying to get a resume shortlisted. So all you look is like what is the impact of this person and what work he did, how was he able to contribute in things, be it any POR, be it any work, be it like any internship or any other work experience. And resources for case solving, Rahul and I will share it, like all the necessary resources that you require. Anything you guys would like to add, Rahul? Actually?
I think that wraps it up quite well. We have added like the Aspire Notion page for Pilani people, and if any Goa people are watching, do check out the Notion page as well. They have built out a really good track for everyone to check out. We'll try to include in a mail in the future. Just to check it out in the short term is the Aspire Notion page by Bits Pilani.
Yeah, do check it out. Like they have like great resources you've attached there.
Yeah. Even I did check out, and those were like it's very beautifully curated across. So the navigation aspect is quite nice within that Notion page. Now, apart from that, just explore things out there. That's what I'll say. Don't focus on case solving right now, unless and until you're a fourth year or a third year trying for a SIP, right? If you are not, then probably I feel that 15 days personally was more optimum for me for to get my case solving abilities on point. And there's always case burnout is real, and there's always a saturation point. Post that, your case solving abilities would decrease, right? And which I personally faced also while I was preparing for BCG. So it's much better that right now the major focus should be exploring things, figuring out what's best for you, what do you want to work, and clubs and departments are a great way to explore those things. If you want to explore something core, then probably a mechanical club, which we used to call it as SAE. I don't know what's it called in Pilani, but they build cars for the competitions, right? So that is one. Then ASME. Then what else? For mechanical, though, I know only these two clubs. For consult, obviously, there are various consulting clubs, be the independent consulting club, for which I was luckily a part of, or be it 180 DC. And what else? Product management, I don't know if there are clubs in Pilani or Goa. But these business clubs or these consult clubs would always give you an opportunity towards product management too. And if you want to be a sports guy, then make sure that you excel within sports. Make sure that you are proactive, and you are one of the leaders within the college.
Yeah. So I guess this wraps up the session, and any queries that you might have, you can drop it onto the consulting committee email ID, or probably here are our numbers. So you can just ping us anytime, asking anything that you want, anything relevant. And yeah, I guess that wraps it up. Thanks a lot, Lakshya, for joining us. Thanks a lot, Rahul.
No problem, man. And great work, Rahul and Aditya, for conducting this. I hope it's a great help to a lot of people. It's been 1.5 hours. I'll suggest everyone to watch it at 1.5x, to be very honest. Or we can try making some snippets out of this if possible, so that important snippets, so that people are helped out of it. And yeah, that's it. We can wrap this up.
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lakshya, again.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I guess it's over, the live stream.